Yay, we are going over your sample meal plan. Now, your sample meal plan serves as a jumping off point, as in you are not at all married to these recipes, pun intended. You are free to innovate and choose different recipes, find different recipes, use our recipe book. But this is just a jumping off point so that you can experiment and align to your new macro targets. Now, I don't need you to be a Nazi with your macro targets in the sense that I don't want you freaking out if you are not on the dot with your protein, your carb, and your fats. But I do ideally want you as close as possible to these macro guidelines listed at the top of your page. So, that being said, a range is totally acceptable if you can align and be in compliance with plus or minus 10 grams of your protein goal, plus or minus 10 grams of your carb goal, and plus or minus 5 grams of your fat goal. That would be amazing. And reason being is because fat is the most calorically dense macro out of the three. You don't necessarily need to know this, but just as we're learning and we're starting to grasp what are macros and how do we use them, protein and carbs are 4 calories per gram, whereas fat is 9 calories per gram. So because fat is more than double the caloric density in comparison to protein and carb, that's why I want you to stay closer to that goal, plus or minus 5, whereas you have a little bit more room with your carb and your protein. But again, I do want us to be as close as possible, especially when we're starting this journey together. The compliance aspect is so important in the beginning of your journey because it helps us build momentum, and you'll see that momentum being built in the initial part of your journey is going to really help propel you into more and more progress as our time together continues. That being said, again, I'd like you to be as compliant as possible with these. And in the initial parts of us working together, I'd like you to stay compliant to these macros for 6 out of the 7 days of the week. Meaning 1 day out of the week, I want you to choose a free meal, whether that's dinner with your fiance, maybe you're going to a bachelorette. 1 day out of the week, let's just call it Saturday night dinner is your free meal of the week. So you would follow your macros Monday through Friday, and then Saturday rolls around, have your typical breakfast, your typical lunch, have a little bit of a snack as well so you don't go hangry to your dinner. And then for dinner, I want you to get whatever you desire, whatever you'd like to get. My only rule is I would like you to just stop whenever you're full. So stop whenever you're satiated. Don't go past your limits of being full. And then we'll just wrap up, and Sunday you'll get back to tracking. So again, in that example, you're in compliance with your macros Monday through Friday. You don't need to track anything on Saturday. Have your normal breakfast, lunch, snack, whatever you'd like for your dinner. Don't worry about it. Don't have to track it. And then get back to it on Sunday. That sort of structure is going to, again, help us build momentum and start seeing results right out the gate. Later down the road, we can absolutely incorporate more flexibility. But for these initial weeks, again, of working together, I'd really like us to be as compliant as possible. And there's another video in terms of weekends, how to handle them, all of that good stuff that I'll make sure that you get as well, so you know how to handle this situation. So within your sample meal plan, your macro targets are going to be listed at the top of the page. And then I've broken them down into breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner, and dessert, because that is the layout that I suggest that we eventually get to. If you're someone who is used to skipping breakfast, skipping lunch, and then you just have 1 meal per day, that's not the flow that we'll likely get to right out the gate. However, it is the flow that I recommend us getting to eventually, and there's a reason why, but just for the sake of time in this video, that is the format that I do suggest. So I've taken your specific personalized macro targets that are at the top of your page and distributed them into that breakfast, lunch, snack, and dinner and dessert. However, you don't have to follow that flow exactly. It's okay if your breakfast ends up being 10 grams carbs less than that and you put it into your dinner instead, or you move some things around. This is just an idea as to how to hit your overall macro targets based on that flow of a day. In your sample meal plan, you will have 3 examples for breakfast, 3 examples for lunch, 3 examples for snack. All of these should be aligned with your favorite foods form and in the exact amounts that you need for each meal. So for example, if you have breakfast and you have whatever your meal sample meal is for breakfast, your first initial one, those ingredients should be aligned with the macros for breakfast that is specific to you. Now, we do not have to be perfect right out the gate. I do not want you to feel overwhelmed or feel like this is too much or feel like this is undoable. All I want you to focus on your first week is doing your best. And then we will have a one-on-one call after your first week where you get all of your workouts under your belt, you've had all of your nutrition under your belt for your first week, and we will troubleshoot all this together. So just do your best this week. That is my biggest suggestion. That is my biggest ask. And let me know if you have any questions, if you see anything that's off, if something is not aligned with your favorite foods for some reason. I got you. I'm here for you. Let me know if you have any concerns or questions, and I'll talk to you soon.